Welcome to this online masterclass where we're going to give you our top tips to help you kickstart your graduate career in China. This is what we'll be covering during the course of our session today. We are going to describe key features of the Chinese graduate job market, advise you on how to sell your Newcastle University experience to Chinese employers on your CV, and share our advice on where to search for graduate job opportunities in China. Firstly, some useful statistics. The graduate job market in China is competitive. There are around 95,000 Chinese students studying in the UK, and recent research led by Warwick University found that around 90% of these return to China in the 6 months following their graduation. In addition to this, according to Chinese recruitment platform Lock in China, there are a further 800,000 Chinese students returning to China each year after studying overseas in other countries. And in China, around 8.34 million students are graduating every year. This means that the competition for graduate jobs in China is very high. Here are some current trends in the Chinese labour market. China has a healthy job market as organisations are working towards the Made in China 2025 strategy. Made in China 2025 is a strategic plan for China. It is in essence a blueprint to upgrade the manufacturing capabilities of Chinese industries, and as such there is an increasing demand for skilled workers and graduates. According to Lock in China, the preferred industries for Chinese graduates are in internet, e-commerce, professional services, including consulting, accountancy and HR, production and manufacturing, IT systems and education. These areas are often the most competitive, and companies working in these areas often receive a high number of applications for graduate roles. A recent report into Chinese employer perceptions led by the British Council found that there were an increasing number of opportunities in artificial intelligence, digital payments, clean energy and healthcare. There are different types of graduate level opportunities in China. Firstly, graduate schemes or graduate training programs. These are often offered by large organisations and last for a period of 2 to 3 years. Candidates are often recruited far in advance, and there are two main recruitment periods. The first recruitment period takes place from September to December, and the second period from March to April. What that means is that if you are on a 1-year postgraduate programme and interested in applying for graduate recruitment schemes, it is important to start looking for these as soon as you arrive in Newcastle. Often there can be multiple stages during the recruitment process. You may be asked to submit an online application, undertake online tests, record a video interview and attend an assessment centre, and this can take time. Our advice would be to apply early, take every stage in the application process seriously and visit the Career Service for further support. Not all students want to apply for graduate schemes or graduate training programmes, and there will be opportunities to apply directly to companies for graduate level roles as well. Usually you will not be able to do this until you are close to returning to China, as often the companies may want you to start employment with them as soon as they offer you a role. These types of opportunities may be with smaller companies, and they may not be as well advertised as graduate training programs. Our advice would be to use a number of job search sites to find these opportunities and use your personal and professional connections. In China, there are different types of organisations you can apply for. There are some opportunities with public sector companies or government agencies, state-owned companies, domestic or private companies, and multinationals. State-owned enterprises, or SOEs as they are otherwise known, typically undertake commercial activities on behalf of the Chinese government. They are considered more traditional than private companies and multinationals, and graduate starting salaries can be slightly lower. However, they do increase over time, and opportunities are not always as competitive as other types of companies. They can also offer better annual leave, job security, and housing benefits. Guanxi and personal connections is important if you are looking to work in an SOE, as sometimes SOE employees are asked to recommend contacts for roles. These types of companies value subject and university rankings, so it will be important to showcase this in an application. Private domestic companies, or POEs, are companies not owned by the government. They typically have high potential for salary and progression, and POEs are increasingly looking outwards as they expand internationally, which makes Chinese graduates who have studied overseas an exciting prospect for them. There are an increasing number of roles in these types of companies. Multinationals and foreign investment enterprises, or FIEs, are non-Chinese companies who have a presence in China. These companies tend to offer graduate training programs and are very competitive, particularly as they can be more technologically advanced and can pay slightly higher salaries than other types of companies. It will be important to demonstrate excellent levels of written and spoken English and prior work experience if you are applying for roles with multinationals. These types of companies also focus more on transferable skills and work experience rather than university and subject rankings. It's important to have realistic expectations of your first graduate role in China. Firstly, as a Chinese graduate who has studied overseas, you should expect to earn roughly the same salary or around 10 to 20% more than a Chinese graduate who has studied in China. Some Chinese employers say Chinese students who study overseas have inflated salary expectations. We recommend thinking about salary expectations from a long-term perspective. According to a recent report from the British Council, after 5 years of employment, Chinese graduates will see higher salary growth compared to domestic graduates, especially if they move into management roles. Don't forget about additional benefits companies give their employees, such as housing allowance, paid annual leave and training opportunities. It isn't all about salary. Our Chinese partner and employer contacts have indicated that recent graduates should be prepared to work hard in their first graduate role. It is common to work long hours during the week, and many graduates say their working culture can be quite last minute, and they are expected to work overtime at evenings and weekends. Many graduates aim to work in Tier 1 cities, and Shanghai, Beijing and Shenzhen are the most popular cities among graduates, according to Lock in China. It is important to consider other opportunities in other cities, especially in Tier 2, 3 and 4 cities, where the competition may not be as fierce, so we recommend keeping an open mind. Here are some of the main things Chinese employers are looking for. Firstly, reputation is important, so many employers will look for good grades from a good university. We'll talk more about how you can present this in an application later in this presentation. Employers, especially in multinationals, are increasingly looking for candidates with relevant work experience, particularly if it is relevant to the role or sector you would like to work in. It's important to try and gain as much experience as you can in your chosen area of interest before you graduate. They also look for graduates with the ability to work well under pressure. The British Council state that typical skills that Chinese employers look for are teamwork, communication, presentation, interpersonal skills, problem solving and creativity. Think about where you are now. How could you evidence these skills in a potential application? Are there any of these skills you feel you need to develop further? Employers also say they look for other skills. If you have additional skills in things like coding, graphic design, these will be welcomed by employers. Many companies may also test your English proficiency, particularly in multinationals and private companies. UK and Chinese CVs can be quite different, so it's important to be aware of this before you apply for graduate roles in China. Chinese CVs contain a lot more personal information on them, including a photo, your gender and date of birth. Your education section is considered very important in a Chinese CV, so always put this before your work experience. It's also useful to highlight academic achievements such as scholarships, awards and prizes you have won if applicable. If applying for a multinational company in China, be aware that you may be asked to present the employer with both an English and Chinese CV. Many Chinese employers will not know much about Newcastle University and our reputation, and some Chinese employers look to recruit graduates from top 200 ranked universities. Newcastle is consistently ranked within the top 200 global universities. However, if you don't tell an employer this, they may not work this out for themselves. We recommend adding this detail into your CV when you are talking about your studies at Newcastle University. Here are the university's latest global rankings. So where should you look for opportunities? We recommend using a range of different resources to search for graduate opportunities in China. Searching on company websites for organisations you're interested in working for is perhaps an obvious start, but there are many other ways to find opportunities. My Career on the Career Service website typically advertises a number of roles in China. You can also try popular recruitment websites in China, such as 51job and Zhaopin. There's also Lock in China, who specialise in supporting Chinese students find work experience and graduate opportunities in China. Social media can also be useful, as Chinese companies often use a range of social media channels, including LinkedIn, Weibo and WeChat, to advertise their vacancies. Finally, it is important to consider your personal and professional networks. Guanxi and the concept of building relationships is a core part of Chinese business culture and a central idea in Chinese society. Many organisations, especially state-owned companies, seek recommendations from their employees, so make sure you think about who your personal and professional connections are and how they may be able to assist you in finding graduate employment. Finally, we recommend keeping an open mind. As the world changes, so does the Chinese job market, so it's important to be flexible and adaptable when it comes to your career options. Having a good idea about your skills, values and interests is crucial, and you need to be able to sell yourself and think about what makes you different from other candidates. We recommend getting as much experience during your time studying at Newcastle University. From being involved in peer mentoring to staff-student committees, having a part-time job or volunteering, the more active you are in student life, the more you will have to say in a CV or in an application. It's important to keep in touch with contacts back home while you are studying in Newcastle. Don't underestimate the importance of personal connections and how they might help you find your ideal role. We hope you have found this masterclass useful. For further support, you can drop in and see us at Level 1 Kingsgate from 11 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. during term time and 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. during vacation periods.